My wife's mother gave her grandkids iPads, jewelry, and cash, except my daughter. Not really family, she said. My wife said nothing. Then, my 9-year-old slid a box across the table and said, "Grandma, Dad told me to give this to you if you ever ignored me again." She opened it and screamed. You know that moment when time slows down like you're watching a car crash in slow motion? Yeah, that's exactly what happened at Gloria's dining room table on Christmas Eve. 1 second we're all pretending to be the perfect American family. You know the drill, fake smiles plastered on our faces like we're auditioning for a Hallmark movie. And the next second, my 9-year-old daughter Bella is sliding a small red box across the mahogany table like she's dealing cards in Vegas. "Grandma," Bella announced, her voice cutting through the awkward small talk about Aunt Martha's new hip replacement. "Dad told me to give this to you if you ever ignored me again." Now, let me paint you the picture here. We're sitting in Gloria's dining room, which looks like Martha Stewart threw up all over it. Everything perfectly coordinated, from the gold-rimmed china to the cloth napkins that probably cost more than my car payment. The whole family's there. My wife Natalie looking like she'd rather be getting a root canal, her sister Caroline and her perfect little angels Maddox and Ivy. And of course, the queen bee herself, Gloria, holding court at the head of the table like she's presiding over the damn Supreme Court. The silence that followed Bella's announcement was so thick you could have cut it with one of Gloria's fancy sterling silver knives. I'm talking dead silence. The kind where even the grandfather clock in the hallway seemed to hold its breath. Every fork in the room froze mid-air like we were all playing the world's most uncomfortable game of freeze tag. Natalie, bless her heart, was staring at her plate of untouched green bean casserole like it held the secrets of the universe. Her face had gone whiter than the tablecloth, and I could practically see the gears grinding in her head, trying to figure out how to smooth this over without actually, taking a side. Classic Natalie, always the peacekeeper, even when peace meant throwing her own stepdaughter under the bus. Gloria, on the other hand, put on that tight, polite smile she'd perfected over 67 years of Southern passive aggression. You know the one. Lips stretched thin as dental floss, eyes harder than week-old biscuits. "Well, isn't that sweet?" she said, her voice dripping with the kind of fake honey that makes your teeth ache. What could this possibly be? I wanted to jump in right then, maybe crack a joke to defuse the tension, but this was Bella's show. She'd been planning this moment for months, ever since I gave her that box and told her what to do with it. My little girl had more backbone than half the adults in that room, and honestly, I was proud as hell of her for it. Gloria picked up the box with the same enthusiasm most people reserve for handling roadkill. She turned it over in her manicured hands, nails painted Christmas red to match her sweater, because God forbid anything in Gloria's world wasn't coordinated. The wrapping paper was simple red with a gold bow, nothing fancy. Bella had wrapped it herself, and you could tell. The edges weren't perfectly crisp, and there was a little too much tape on one corner. But it was wrapped with love, which was more than I could say for most of the gifts under Gloria's designer Christmas tree. "Should I open it now?" Gloria asked, still wearing that plastic smile. "Or save it for later?" "Now's good," Bella said simply, and I swear I heard a note of steel in her voice that reminded me exactly why I loved this kid so damn much. The rest of the family leaned in like they were watching a tennis match, heads swiveling between Bella and Gloria. Caroline's kids, Maddox and Ivy, stopped arguing over who got the last dinner roll and actually paid attention for once in their spoiled little lives. Even Uncle Bob put down his third helping of mashed potatoes to watch the drama unfold. Gloria peeled away the wrapping paper with the precision of a surgeon, because even opening a gift had to be a performance with her. She lifted the lid of the small jewelry box. Yeah, I'd bought it from the same place I got Natalie's engagement ring, which seemed fitting somehow, and looked inside. That's when her face changed. The fake smile cracked like a dropped plate, and for just a split second, I saw something flicker across her features. Confusion, maybe, or recognition. Hard to tell with Gloria. She'd been wearing masks for so long, I wasn't sure she remembered what her real face looked like. She reached into the box and pulled out the contents, and that's when the real show started. First came the photograph. 8 by 10, professional quality, showing Bella in her adoption day dress, arms wrapped around my neck, both of us grinning like idiots. The frame read, "Day 1 Dad," in silver letters that caught the light from Gloria's crystal chandelier. Then came the folded piece of paper. Gloria unfolded it slowly, her eyes scanning the official letterhead, the legal jargon, the signatures at the bottom. Bella's adoption certificate, with my name printed clear as day in black ink. Legal proof that this amazing little girl was mine in every way that mattered. Finally, she pulled out the letter. My letter. The one I'd written on a sleepless night 3 months ago when I was tired of watching Bella get treated like a second-class citizen in her own family. I'd poured my heart out on that paper, told Gloria exactly what I thought about her behavior, her favoritism, her complete inability to see past her own prejudices long enough to love an innocent child. Gloria read the letter in silence, her face cycling through more expressions than a mime having a breakdown. I watched her lips move slightly as she read, saw her hands start to shake just a little. The whole room was holding its breath, waiting for her reaction. And boy, did she deliver. The scream that came out of Gloria's mouth was something else. High-pitched, sharp enough to shatter her precious crystal, and loaded with more drama than a daytime soap opera. It was the kind of scream that said, "How dare you challenge me in my own house?" And "I've been caught red-handed," all rolled into one unholy shriek. "What is this?" she demanded, waving the papers in the air like she was trying to surrender to an invisible army. "What kind of sick joke is this supposed to be?" But I knew it wasn't really a question. Gloria knew exactly what it was. It was accountability, gift-wrapped and delivered by a 9-year-old with more integrity in her pinky finger than Gloria had in her whole body. It was Bella's way of saying, "I see you, I know what you're doing, and I'm not going to pretend it's okay anymore." The box had done its job. The message was delivered. And as I looked at my daughter, my brave, brilliant, beautiful daughter, standing there with her chin up and her shoulders back, I knew that whatever happened next, she'd already won. Let me tell you something about favoritism. It's like watching someone slowly poison a well while everyone pretends the water still tastes fine. Gloria didn't just prefer her other grandkids. She practically worshipped the ground they walked on while treating Bella like she was some kind of unwanted house guest who'd overstayed her welcome at the family reunion from hell. The real grandkids. That's what Gloria called them once during a particularly brutal Thanksgiving dinner last year. Caroline's kids, Maddox and Ivy, were the golden children. The ones who got their pictures plastered all over Gloria's Facebook page with captions like, "My precious angels," and "Blessed to be their grandma." Meanwhile, Bella might as well have been invisible for all the attention she got on social media. I used to check Gloria's page sometimes, just to torture myself. Hundreds of photos of Maddox's soccer games and Ivy's dance recitals, but maybe 3 pictures of Bella from the last 2 years, and those were group shots where you could barely see her face. But this Christmas Eve, man, Gloria really outdid herself. It was like watching a masterclass in emotional warfare, Southern style. She'd turned gift-giving into an Olympic sport, and Bella wasn't even invited to compete. The whole production started right after dinner, which had been its own special kind of torture. Gloria had made sure to seat Bella at the kids' table. Yeah, that's right. The 9-year-old got demoted to sit with her 4-year-old cousin, while 10-year-old Maddox got to eat with the grown-ups, because he was such a mature young man. I watched Bella's face when that happened, saw the little flicker of hurt she tried to hide behind a brave smile. Natalie, of course, said nothing, just helped herself to another glass of wine like liquid courage was going to magically grow her a backbone. After we'd all stuffed ourselves with Gloria's famous honey ham, and by famous, I mean she brought it up in conversation at least 6 times during dinner, it was time for the main event. Gloria had arranged the presents under her 14-foot Christmas tree like she was curating a museum exhibit. Everything was color-coordinated, for crying out loud. Red and gold wrapping paper, matching ribbons, little name tags written in her perfect cursive handwriting that probably took her 3 hours to complete. "All right, my darlings," Gloria announced, clapping her hands together like she was calling a board meeting to order. "Time for presents. But first, let's get some pictures." And there it was, the first sign of the disaster to come. She gathered Maddox and Ivy around the tree, positioning them just so, adjusting their hair and smoothing down their fancy clothes. The iPhone came out, and suddenly it was a full-blown photo shoot. "Say cheese, my beautiful grandchildren." Click, click, click. About 50 photos later, she was satisfied with her Christmas card material. Bella stood there the whole time, just watching. Not pouting, not throwing a fit, just observing with those wise brown eyes of hers that seemed too old for her 9-year-old face. I wanted to grab her, pull her into those photos, make Gloria acknowledge her existence. But Bella caught my eye and shook her head slightly. She knew. God, she knew exactly what was happening, and she was handling it better than any of the adults in that room. Then came the gifts, and sweet Jesus. It was like watching someone hand out $100 bills at a homeless shelter while skipping every third person in line. Maddox went first, naturally, because he was the oldest and the most special, according to Gloria's twisted logic. Brand new iPad Pro, still in the box, with all the accessories. The kid didn't even say thank you, just tore into the packaging like a miniature tornado while Gloria beamed at him like he'd just cured cancer. Careful with that, sweetheart, Gloria cooed, helping him peel off the protective plastic. Grandma saved up for months to get you the very best one. Months. She'd saved up for months for Maddox's gift. Keep that in mind, because it becomes important later. Ivy was next, and her haul was equally impressive. A jewelry box that played music when you opened it. Not just any jewelry box, mind you, but one of those fancy ones from that expensive boutique downtown that charges more for a trinket box than most people spend on groceries in a month. Inside the jewelry box, a real gold bracelet with little charms dangling from it. Each charm represented something special about Ivy. Gloria explained in excruciating detail. A tiny dance shoe because she loved ballet. A little book because she was such a good reader. A miniature heart because she was Grandma's sweetheart. The performance continued with envelopes, thick, cream-colored envelopes that you just knew contained cold hard cash. $50 each for Maddox and Ivy, handed over with instructions to buy something special, and don't tell your parents I spoiled you. Like money was just another way to show love, which I guess in Gloria's world, it was. Through all of this, Natalie sat there like a statue. Not a word, not a protest. Not even a suggestion that maybe, just maybe, all the kids should be treated equally. She just sipped her wine and nodded along with Gloria's commentary, like she was watching a mildly interesting documentary, instead of witnessing her own daughter getting systematically excluded from the family. That silence was deafening. It was louder than Gloria's fake enthusiasm, louder than the kids' excited squealing, louder than the Christmas music playing softly in the background. Natalie's silence was a choice, and that choice spoke volumes about where her loyalties really lay. Finally, after what felt like 3 hours, but was probably only 30 minutes, Gloria turned her attention to Bella. "Oh," she said, like she'd suddenly remembered there was another child in the room. "I almost forgot. Bella, honey, I have something for you too." The way she said it, like Bella was an afterthought, like her gift was some kind of consolation prize, made my blood pressure spike so high I thought my head might explode. But I kept my mouth shut. This was Bella's moment, and I wasn't going to steal it from her. Gloria disappeared into the kitchen and came back with a tiny gift bag. Not wrapped, not under the tree with the other presents. Just a small paper bag with tissue paper sticking out the top like a wilted flower. She handed it to Bella with that same fake smile she'd been wearing all evening. "Didn't want you to feel completely left out," she said, and I swear I saw Natalie flinch at those words. Even she knew that was over the line. Bella opened the bag carefully, her small fingers pulling out the tissue paper piece by piece. Inside was a candle. A single, solitary candle that smelled like lavender and probably cost about $5 at the dollar store. There was a little tag attached to it with curly ribbon, and when Gloria saw Bella reading it, she actually had the audacity to smile wider. "To Natalie's girl," the tag read. Not to Bella. Not to my granddaughter. Not even to our sweet girl. Just Natalie's girl. Like Bella was some kind of borrowed property that didn't really belong to the family. That's when I knew. That's when I realized that all my hoping and waiting for Gloria to come around, all my faith that family meant something to these people, all my belief that love could conquer the petty bullshit, it was all just wishful thinking. Gloria had drawn her lines in the sand, and Bella would never be on the right side of them. And Natalie, my wife, who'd promised to love and protect Bella when we got married, she said nothing. Again, just stared at that damn table like it held the answers to life's great mysteries while her daughter, our daughter, got slapped in the face with indifference wrapped up in lavender-scented rejection. You know what's worse than a slap in the face? A slap in the face delivered with a smile and wrapped up like a present. That's exactly what happened next. And let me tell you, it took every ounce of self-control I had not to flip that perfectly decorated dining table right over and storm out with Bella in my arms. Gloria was still basking in the afterglow of her gift-giving performance, probably thinking she'd done her good deed for the year by tossing Bella a bone. She had that self-satisfied look on her face, you know the one, like when someone holds the door open for you and then stands there waiting for a medal. The woman actually thought she deserved praise for remembering that there was a third child in the room. Well, go ahead, sweetie, Gloria said to Bella, gesturing toward the pathetic little gift bag like she'd just handed over the crown jewels. Open it up. See what Grandma got for you. The way she said Grandma made my skin crawl. Like she was doing Bella some kind of massive favor by acknowledging their relationship, even though she'd been systematically trying to erase it for the past 3 years. But Bella, bless her heart, didn't miss a beat. She reached into that sad excuse for a gift bag and pulled out the candle with the same grace she'd have shown if it were a diamond necklace. Thank you, Grandma, Bella said quietly, turning the candle over in her small hands. It was one of those cheap ones you find in the clearance section at CVS, probably lavender vanilla or some generic, relaxing scent that smells more like industrial air freshener than anything that ever grew in a garden. The kind of gift you grab when you suddenly remember you're supposed to bring something to the white elephant exchange at work. But it wasn't the candle that broke my heart. It was what came next. Gloria leaned forward, squinting at the little tag tied to the candle with a piece of purple ribbon that had seen better days. Oh, let me see that tag, honey, she said, reaching for it like she'd forgotten what she'd written. Like hell she had. Gloria was many things, manipulative, petty, vindictive, but forgetful wasn't one of them. The woman could remember every slight, every argument, every perceived insult from the past 40 years, but somehow she couldn't remember what she'd written on a gift tag 3 days ago. Please. She held the tag up to the light, and I watched her face carefully. No surprise. No oops. How did that happen? Moment. Just that same plastic smile she'd been wearing all evening, maybe even a little wider now. She knew exactly what she'd written, and she was proud of it. To Natalie's girl, she read out loud, like she was announcing the winner of a goddamn beauty pageant. Wasn't that sweet of me to remember? Remember what, exactly? That Bella existed? That she was sitting right there in the room? That she was a human being with feelings, and not some kind of furniture that occasionally needed acknowledgement? The words hit the room like a bomb going off in slow motion. I felt Caroline shift uncomfortably in her seat, saw Uncle Bob suddenly find his coffee cup incredibly fascinating, watched Maddox and Ivy exchange confused glances because even they could sense something was wrong with what had just happened. But it was the look on Bella's face that nearly did me in. She didn't cry. God, I almost wish she had, because at least then everyone would have seen the damage being done in real time. Instead, she just went very still, very quiet, like a little animal that knows it's being hunted and hopes that if it doesn't move, maybe the predator will lose interest and wander away. Her shoulders sagged just a fraction of an inch, and I saw something dim behind her eyes. That spark of hope that maybe this time would be different. Maybe this time she'd be included. Maybe this time she'd matter. Natalie's girl. Not Bella. Not our granddaughter. Not even our girl. Just Natalie's girl, like she was some kind of accessory that belonged to my wife rather than a full-fledged member of this screwed-up family. Like I didn't exist. Like the adoption papers didn't exist. Like the 3 years I'd spent loving this kid with everything I had somehow didn't count because I wasn't blood related to the queen bee holding court at the head of the table. I gripped the edge of my chair so hard, I probably left finger indentations in the wood. Every muscle in my body was coiled tight, ready to spring into action, ready to say all the things that had been building up inside me for months. But this wasn't my moment. This was Bella's story to tell, and I could see in her eyes that she understood exactly what was happening. She wasn't stupid. Kids never are, no matter how much adults like to pretend they don't notice the subtle cruelties, the casual dismissals, the way their worth gets measured in gift bags and name tags. Bella had been watching, listening, learning the hard way that sometimes the people who are supposed to love you the most are the ones who hurt you the deepest. Gloria was still holding that damn tag, admiring her handiwork like she'd just written the Gettysburg Address instead of a three-word gut punch to a 9-year-old. I thought it was important to be specific, she continued, because apparently she wasn't done twisting the knife. After all, Bella is Natalie's stepdaughter, and I didn't want there to be any confusion about relationships. Confusion about relationships. Right. Because God forbid anyone might accidentally think that Bella actually belonged to this family, that she had any claim to the love and acceptance that seemed to flow so freely to Maddox and Ivy. Can't have that kind of confusion clouding up the family tree, can we? And through all of this masterclass in emotional abuse disguised as Christmas cheer, Natalie sat there like a statue. Her face had gone pale, and I could see her hands trembling slightly as she reached for her wine glass, but she didn't say a word. Not one single word in defense of the child who called her mom, who looked up to her, who trusted her to protect her from exactly this kind of cruelty. That silence was becoming a pattern, and it was starting to eat away at me like acid. Every time Gloria pulled this crap, every time she found a new way to exclude Bella or diminish her importance, Natalie would just disappear. Mentally check out. Find something incredibly interesting to stare at while her mother systematically destroyed her daughter's sense of belonging. I kept waiting for her to stand up, to say something, anything that would show Bella that she mattered, that she was worth defending. But Natalie just sat there, trapped between her mother's approval and her daughter's pain, and apparently she'd already chosen which one was more important to her. Bella carefully placed the candle back in the gift bag, folding the tissue paper around it with the kind of precision that broke my heart. She was being so careful, so respectful, even in the face of this humiliation. It was like watching someone thank their executioner for using a sharp blade. "It smells really nice, Grandma," she said softly, and I had to bite my tongue to keep from screaming at the injustice of it all. Here was this amazing kid, this brave, beautiful, brilliant little girl, thanking the woman who'd just carved another piece out of her heart. That's when I saw it. That little light in Bella's eyes dimming just a fraction more. Not going out completely, thank God, but definitely growing dimmer. And I knew right then and there that something had to be done. This couldn't continue. I couldn't keep watching the woman I married choose her mother's comfort over our daughter's well-being. I couldn't keep pretending that things might change, that Gloria might come around, that family meant anything more than shared DNA and holiday obligations to these people. Bella deserved better. She deserved a family that claimed her completely, not one that kept her at arm's length with gift tags and careful distinctions about whose girl she really was. The drive home from Gloria's house was quieter than a library on Christmas morning. Bella sat in the back seat clutching that pathetic little gift bag like it was some kind of lifeline, staring out the window at the twinkling Christmas lights that decorated every house we passed. Natalie rode shotgun with her head turned toward her own window, probably hoping that if she ignored the elephant in the car long enough, it would magically disappear and we could all pretend this evening had gone differently. Me? I was gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles had gone white, trying to keep my mouth shut until we got home, because I knew if I started talking about what had just happened, I'd probably say something that couldn't be taken back. The silence in that car was so thick you could have spread it on toast, and every mile we drove felt like another nail in the coffin of this marriage. When we finally pulled into our driveway, Bella unbuckled herself and headed straight for the house without a word. No good night. No complaints about the evening. No questions about why Grandma Gloria seemed to forget she existed half the time. She just walked into our house carrying that stupid candle like it was made of gold instead of cheap wax and disappointment. Natalie disappeared into our bedroom faster than a vampire at sunrise, muttering something about needing to change clothes and wash off her makeup. Translation: she needed to hide from the conversation we both knew was coming. I let her go. Hell, I was almost grateful for the temporary reprieve because I wasn't sure I could look at her right then without losing my mind. I found Bella in her room about an hour later, sitting cross-legged on her bed in her favorite pajamas, the ones with the little planets and stars all over them that she'd picked out herself last month. She was holding something in her lap, turning it over and over in her small hands like she was trying to solve a puzzle. The red box. The one I'd given her 3 months ago during one of my better parenting moments, when I'd finally decided that hope was a luxury we couldn't afford anymore. "Hey, kiddo," I said softly, knocking on her doorframe even though the door was wide open. "Mind if I come in?" She looked up at me with those wise brown eyes that seemed to see right through all the adult bullshit straight to the heart of things. Sure, Dad. Dad. Not stepdad, not Daddy Dave, just Dad. She'd started calling me that about 2 years ago, right around the time she figured out that biology doesn't mean jack when it comes to who really loves you. It still made my chest tight every time I heard it, but tonight it hit different. Tonight it felt like a reminder of what was really at stake here. I sat down on the edge of her bed, careful not to jostle her too much. What you got there? She held up the box, and I could see her fingerprints on the red wrapping paper where she'd been handling it. I was just thinking about what you said, she told me, her voice quiet but steady. About only opening it if Grandma ever forgot who I was again. And what do you think? Did she forget who you were tonight? Bella considered this for a long moment, her forehead scrunched up in concentration. This kid had always been a deep thinker, the type who actually listened when adults talked and remembered everything they said. Sometimes I thought she was too smart for her own good, too aware of the undercurrents and hidden meanings that most 9-year-olds would miss completely. I don't think she forgot, Bella finally said. I think she just doesn't want to remember. Jesus, out of the mouths of babes, right? This kid had just summed up 3 years of family dysfunction in one sentence. Gloria hadn't forgotten that Bella was her granddaughter. She just couldn't bring herself to fully accept it, to claim this amazing little girl as her own, because doing so would mean acknowledging that I was family too. That's a pretty grown-up way to look at it, I said, and I meant it. How does that make you feel? She shrugged, but I could see the hurt lurking behind her casual gesture. Sad, I guess, but not surprised anymore. I kind of figured out a while ago that she wasn't going to change her mind about me. The matter-of-fact way she said it broke something inside my chest. No kid should have to develop that kind of armor, that kind of resigned acceptance of rejection. No kid should have to learn to lower their expectations of love before they've even hit double digits. I'm sorry, Bella. I'm sorry she can't see how amazing you are. It's not your fault, Dad. She picked at a loose thread on her pajama pants, not meeting my eyes. And it's not Mom's fault either, even though sometimes I wish she would say something. There it was. The thing we'd all been dancing around for months. Bella knew that Natalie was choosing silence over advocacy, peace over protection. She'd figured out that her stepmother would rather preserve her relationship with Gloria than risk making waves on Bella's behalf. What if I told you that maybe it's time to remind Grandma Gloria who you really are? I asked carefully. What if I said that sometimes people need a wake-up call to remember what's important? Bella looked down at the box again, then back up at me. Can I give it to her tomorrow? The way she asked it, not hesitant or scared, but determined, told me everything I needed to know about the kind of person this kid was growing up to be. She wasn't asking for permission to be cruel or vindictive. She was asking for permission to stand up for herself, to demand the respect and recognition she deserved. It's your choice, I told her, and I meant every word. But if you decide to do it, I'll be right there with you. She nodded solemnly, like we'd just signed some kind of treaty. Okay, I think I want to do it. I'm tired of pretending it doesn't hurt. You don't have to pretend anymore, kiddo. You're allowed to be hurt when people treat you badly, and you're allowed to do something about it. We sat there for a while longer, not really talking, just being together in that quiet space between decision and action. Bella eventually set the box on her nightstand and crawled under her covers, and I tucked her in like I'd done every night since she was 6 years old. Dad? She said as I was turning off her lamp. Yeah. Do you think tomorrow will be different? I thought about lying to her, telling her that everything would work out fine, that Gloria would apologize and suddenly become the grandmother Bella deserved. But this kid had dealt with enough lies and false hope. She deserved the truth. I think tomorrow is going to change everything, I said instead. I can't promise it'll be easy, but I can promise that whatever happens, you and I will face it together. She smiled at that, the first real smile I'd seen from her all evening. Good. I love you, Dad. I love you too, Bella. More than you'll ever know. I closed her door and stood in the hallway for a moment, listening to her breathing even out as she drifted off to sleep. She slept peacefully that night, probably better than she had in months. There's something to be said for making a decision, for choosing action over acceptance, for finally saying enough is enough. Me? I didn't sleep at all. I lay in bed next to my wife, who was pretending to be asleep but fooling absolutely no one, and stared at the ceiling thinking about what tomorrow would bring. Natalie never asked what was in the box. Maybe she didn't want to know. Maybe she'd already figured out that whatever it was going to force her to choose sides in a war she'd been trying to avoid for 3 years. Or maybe she already knew what side she was on, and that scared her more than facing her mother's wrath ever could. Either way, the die was cast. Bella had made her choice, and I'd made mine right alongside her. Tomorrow we'd find out what my wife would choose, and what kind of family we really were underneath all the holiday pretense and forced smiles. The quiet before the storm always feels like this, heavy with possibility, charged with the electricity of change. And as I lay there listening to Bella's peaceful breathing through the thin walls of our house, I knew that when the sun came up, nothing would ever be the same again. You know what they say about hindsight being 20/20? Well, lying awake at 3 in the morning staring at water stains on your bedroom ceiling has a way of bringing everything into crystal clear focus. As I replayed the evening's events in my mind like some kind of masochistic highlight reel, I realized that what happened at Gloria's house wasn't an isolated incident. It was just the latest chapter in a 3-year-long book titled, How to Systematically Break a Child's Spirit While Everyone Pretends It's Not Happening. The pattern had been there from day one, clear as the nose on my face, but I'd been too hopeful, too naive, too damn determined to make this blended family thing work to see it for what it really was. I'd been making excuses for Gloria's behavior like I was her damn publicist instead of Bella's protector. Remember Ivy's 7th birthday party 2 years ago? The one where Gloria rented out that fancy community center with the bounce house and hired a princess character to come entertain the kids? Every cousin within a 50-mile radius got an invitation hand-delivered by Gloria herself, complete with glittery envelopes and RSVP cards. Bella found out about the party 3 days before it happened, and only because she overheard Natalie on the phone with Caroline discussing what gift to bring. Am I invited to Ivy's party? Bella had asked that night at dinner, her voice small and uncertain in a way that made my heart crack right down the middle. Natalie had looked at me with panic in her eyes, like I was supposed to have some magical answer that would make this situation less horrible than it was. Of course you're invited, sweetheart, she'd said finally. Grandma probably just forgot to give you an invitation. Forgot. Right. The same woman who kept a color-coded calendar system and set phone reminders for everything from dentist appointments to when to water her orchids had somehow forgotten to invite one specific grandchild to a birthday party. The same woman who could remember the exact date and time of every soccer game Maddox had ever played, but couldn't remember to include Bella in family gatherings. So we showed up to that party. Me, Natalie, and Bella with a carefully wrapped present and a brave smile. And you know what happened? Gloria acted like we'd crashed the damn thing. Oh, she was polite enough, sure. Southern women are masters at being rude while maintaining plausible deniability. But I watched her face when she saw us walk in, and for just a split second, her mask slipped. She looked genuinely annoyed that we'd had the audacity to show up. Oh, she'd said, that fake surprise dripping from her voice like honey from a broken jar. Bella, what a nice surprise. I wasn't sure you'd be able to make it. Wasn't sure she'd be able to make it. To her cousin's birthday party. The party that literally every other family member had known about for weeks. But hey, at least Gloria had the decency to act surprised instead of just flat out telling us we weren't welcome. The princess character, some poor college kid making beer money by wearing a plastic tiara and a polyester gown, made a big show of greeting all the birthday girls' special friends. She knew every other kid's name, had little personalized messages for each of them, played games that seemed designed specifically for their interests. When she got to Bella, though, and who might this lovely young lady be? Like Bella was some random kid who'd wandered in off the street instead of family. That's when it hit me that Gloria had briefed the entertainment. She'd given this princess character a whole rundown on who would be at the party, what kids to pay special attention to, probably even suggested activities that the real grandkids would enjoy. But Bella? Bella was an afterthought, a surprise guest at her own cousin's birthday party. I watched my daughter, our daughter, stand on the sidelines during the organized games, not because she wasn't trying to participate, but because she hadn't been factored into the planning. When they played musical chairs, there weren't enough chairs. When they did the scavenger hunt, the teams were already formed and perfectly balanced without her. When it came time for the group photo, guess who got cropped out when Gloria posted it on Facebook later that night? And through all of this, Natalie said nothing. just smiled and made small talk with Caroline about school schedules and summer vacation plans while her daughter learned another hard lesson about where she stood in the family hierarchy. Then there was the infamous sleepover incident from last summer. Caroline had decided to treat all the cousins to a weekend at her house. Movies, pizza, the whole 9 yards. Maddox and Ivy had been talking about it for weeks, planning what movies to watch, what snacks to bring, what pajamas to pack. Bella listened to all this chatter with the kind of quiet attention that kids get when they're waiting to be included in something that sounds amazing. The Friday finally arrived, and Caroline showed up at Gloria's house to collect Maddox and Ivy. I'll never forget the look on Bella's face when she realized that the sleepover she'd been hearing about for a month wasn't meant to include her. She didn't cry, didn't throw a tantrum, didn't even ask why she couldn't go. She just went very quiet and spent the rest of the evening in her room, reading. When I confronted Natalie about it later, she gave me the same tired excuse she always did. Mom probably just thought it would be easier with fewer kids. Easier for who? Certainly not for Bella, who had to watch her cousins bond over shared experiences while she sat at home wondering what she'd done wrong. The birthday invitations that never came. The family photos she somehow never made it into. The holiday traditions that seemed to evolve specifically to exclude her. The casual conversations about family vacations that stopped abruptly whenever she walked into the room. The way Gloria would remember every detail about Maddox's baseball season and Ivy's dance recitals, but couldn't recall what grade Bella was in or who her teacher was. It wasn't forgetfulness. It wasn't being too busy or having too much on her plate. It was a deliberate, systematic campaign to make Bella feel like an outsider in her own family. And the most heartbreaking part? It was working. I thought about all the times Bella had asked if she could spend the night at a friend's house instead of going to family gatherings. All the times she'd chosen to stay home with a babysitter rather than attend events where she knew she'd be treated like a third wheel. All the times she'd made herself smaller, quieter, less demanding, hoping that maybe if she just took up less space, the people who were supposed to love her might find room for her in their hearts. But kids aren't stupid, especially kids who've already learned that love isn't guaranteed, that families can be temporary, that sometimes the people who are supposed to protect you are the ones who hurt you the most. Bella had figured out Gloria's game long before I was willing to admit it was being played. She'd stopped expecting invitations, stopped hoping for equal treatment, stopped believing that she mattered as much as the other grandchildren. And Natalie, my wife, who'd promised to love Bella like her own, who'd sworn she'd always put our family first. She'd chosen her mother's approval over her daughter's well-being so many times that it had become automatic. She'd perfected the art of looking the other way, of finding excuses for inexcusable behavior, of prioritizing peace over protection. That night, lying in bed listening to Natalie's carefully controlled breathing, I finally understood what I'd been refusing to see for 3 years. This wasn't going to get better. Gloria wasn't going to have some magical change of heart. Natalie wasn't going to suddenly find her backbone and stand up for Bella. The pattern was established, and unless something drastic happened to break it, my daughter was going to keep getting hurt over and over again. Which is exactly why I'd given her that red box 3 months ago, during another sleepless night when I'd finally admitted to myself that hope was a luxury we could no longer afford. I'd spent hours putting together the contents, choosing each item carefully, crafting a message that would cut through all the bullshit and force everyone in that family to confront the truth they'd been avoiding. Tomorrow, Bella was going to deliver that truth in a way that couldn't be ignored, dismissed, or explained away. Tomorrow, we were going to find out what kind of people we were really dealing with, and what kind of family we actually had. The storm was coming, and I was ready for it. 3 months ago, on one of those sweltering August nights when the air conditioning couldn't keep up with the Texas heat and sleep was about as elusive as a decent politician, I found myself sitting at my kitchen table at 2 in the morning, staring at my laptop screen like it held the secrets to world peace. The house was dead quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator and the occasional creak of settling wood, and I was doing something I'd never imagined I'd need to do, building a weapon out of love letters and legal documents. The breaking point had come earlier that day at Caroline's annual summer barbecue. You know the kind. One of those perfectly orchestrated suburban gatherings where everyone pretends to be having a blast while secretly judging each other's potato salad and counting how many beers their brother-in-law has knocked back. Gloria had outdone herself that day, turning what should have been a simple family cookout into another masterclass in emotional manipulation. I can still see it like it happened yesterday. There was Bella, sitting alone on the porch swing while all her cousins splashed around in Caroline's fancy new above-ground pool. Not because she didn't want to swim. Hell, that kid loved water more than a fish, but because somehow, mysteriously, no one had thought to tell her to bring a bathing suit. Every other kid got a text from their parents the night before. Don't forget your swimsuit for tomorrow. But Bella? Radio silence. Oh my goodness, Gloria had said when she noticed Bella sitting there in her shorts and t-shirt, watching the other kids have a blast. Sweetie, why aren't you swimming with the others? The innocent tone, the wide eyes, the perfect performance of someone who genuinely couldn't understand why this one particular child wasn't joining in the fun. If I hadn't known better, I might have believed she was actually concerned instead of just covering her ass in front of the other adults. I didn't bring my bathing suit, Bella had said quietly, not accusingly, not with any hint of blame or resentment. Just a simple statement of fact from a kid who'd learned not to expect the same consideration as everyone else. Oh, well, Gloria had replied with that practiced sigh of disappointment that somehow managed to suggest that Bella's lack of preparation was just another example of how she didn't quite fit in with the family standards. Maybe next time you'll remember to bring one. Next time. Like it was Bella's responsibility to read minds and know that a swimming party was swimming optional for some kids and mandatory for others. Like a 9-year-old should have psychic powers to compensate for adults who couldn't be bothered to include her in their planning. I'd watched Bella's face during that exchange, saw the way she just nodded, and accepted the blame for something that was completely out of her control. No protests, no pointing out that nobody had told her to bring a swimsuit, no tears or tantrums. Just quiet acceptance of another exclusion disguised as an oversight. That's when something inside me snapped. Not loudly, not dramatically, but with the quiet finality of a door closing for the last time. I realized I was watching my daughter learn to accept less than she deserved, to make excuses for people who didn't deserve excuses, to shrink herself down to fit into spaces where she was barely welcome. So that night, while the rest of the house slept and the heat pressed against the windows like a living thing, I started building my insurance policy. Call it a nuclear option, call it a reality check wrapped in a bow, call it whatever the hell you want, but I knew that sooner or later, Gloria was going to push things too far, and when that happened, I wanted to be ready. The first thing I did was dig out Bella's adoption papers. The official ones, not the copies we kept in our filing cabinet, but the originals with the raised seal and the judge's signature that made everything legal and binding. Judge Martinez had been so kind that day, patient with a scared 6-year-old who wasn't sure what adoption meant, but knew it had something to do with making Dave her real dad. I remember how Bella had looked in that courthouse, tiny in her favorite pink dress, clutching my hand like her life depended on it, asking whispered questions about whether this meant I'd love her forever. The judge had explained it all so gently, telling her that adoption meant I was choosing to be her daddy not because I had to, but because I wanted to more than anything else in the world. So he'll never leave me, she'd asked, those big brown eyes searching the judge's face for reassurance. Never. Judge Martinez had promised. This paper means he's your daddy forever and always, no matter what. 3 years later, sitting at my kitchen table in the dead of night, I traced my signature on those papers with my finger and remembered the weight of that promise. Forever and always, no matter what. Even when the what included in-laws who treated my daughter like she was less than their biological grandchildren. Next, I pulled up the photos from that day. There were dozens of them. Natalie had gone a little crazy with the camera, documenting every moment like it was a presidential inauguration. But there was one photo that captured everything perfectly. Bella in my arms right after the judge pronounced us officially father and daughter, both of us grinning like idiots, cake frosting smeared on her cheek from the celebration lunch we'd had afterward. I'd had that photo professionally printed and framed it in one of those fancy silver frames with Day 1 Dad engraved at the bottom. Not stepdad or bonus dad or any of those other terms people use when they want to put qualifications on love. Just dad. Because that's what I became that day. Not her biological father, but her real father in every way that mattered. The frame had been sitting on my dresser for 3 years, but that night I knew it belonged somewhere else. In a box, with a message attached that couldn't be misunderstood or ignored or explained away. The letter took me the longest to write. I must have started it 20 different ways, trying to find the right tone, the right words, the right balance between fury and disappointment. How do you tell someone that they're failing a child without sounding preachy? How do you explain that love isn't conditional, that family isn't about blood types and DNA tests, that a 9-year-old deserves better than crumbs disguised as kindness? In the end, I kept it simple. I wrote about what I saw every time we visited Gloria's house. The way Bella's face lit up when she thought she was finally going to be included, and the way that light dimmed when she realized she was still on the outside looking in. I wrote about birthday parties she wasn't invited to and family photos she somehow never made it into. I wrote about a little girl who'd already learned too much about disappointment and not nearly enough about unconditional love. I wrote about the day I adopted her, about the promises I made in that courthouse, about the kind of father I was determined to be and the kind of family I thought we were building together. I wrote about second chances and fresh starts and how some people get blessed with the opportunity to love a child who isn't biologically theirs, and how criminal it is to waste that blessing. But mostly, I wrote about Bella, about how she never complained when she got left out, never threw tantrums when she was treated differently, never stopped hoping that maybe this time would be different. I wrote about her resilience and her kindness and her capacity for forgiveness, and how those beautiful qualities were being slowly eroded by people who should have been protecting them instead of exploiting them. The letter ended up being 3 pages long, single-spaced, every word carefully chosen and ruthlessly edited. It was part love letter, part ultimatum, part wake-up call. It was everything I'd wanted to say for 3 years, but had been too polite, too hopeful, too damn naive to actually voice. When I was finally satisfied with it, I folded it carefully and slipped it into an envelope. Then I gathered up the adoption papers, the photograph, and the letter, and packed them all into a small jewelry box I'd bought at the same store where I'd gotten Natalie's engagement ring. Seemed fitting somehow, using a symbol of love and commitment to deliver a message about what those things actually mean. I wrapped the box in red paper, Bella's favorite color, and tied it with a gold ribbon. Then I wrote her name on a small card in my best handwriting and tucked it under the bow. For weeks after that, the box sat in my desk drawer like a loaded gun, waiting for the right moment to be fired. That moment came 3 months later, on Christmas Eve, when Gloria handed my daughter a $5 candle and called her Natalie's girl, like she was returning a borrowed book instead of acknowledging her own granddaughter. Some weapons are made of steel and gunpowder. Others are made of truth and consequences. That little red box contained both, wrapped up in love and delivered by a 9-year-old who'd finally had enough of being treated like she didn't matter. Tomorrow, we'd find out just how much damage the truth could do. Christmas morning came with all the subtlety of a freight train carrying disappointment and wrapped in forced holiday cheer. Bella was up before dawn, not because she was excited about presents. We'd already done our real gift exchange at home the night before, but because she'd made a decision and kids don't waste time second-guessing themselves the way adults do. She stood in her bedroom doorway at 6:30 in the morning, already dressed in her favorite red velvet dress with the sparkly bits around the collar, her hair brushed into 2 neat braids she'd somehow managed to do herself. Those little sparkle boots she'd begged for at Target last month were already on her feet, and she was holding that damn red box like it was the most precious thing she owned. "Morning, Dad," she said, and her voice was steady as a rock. No nervousness, no second thoughts. Just quiet determination that made my chest swell with pride and terror in equal measure. "Morning, kiddo. You look beautiful." And she did, like a little warrior princess dressed for battle, which I guess is exactly what she was. "Can I take the box?" she asked, holding it up for me to see. The wrapping paper was a little wrinkled from where she'd been holding it, but the gold bow was still perfectly centered, still pristine. I looked at my daughter, really looked at her, standing there in her Christmas dress with her chin up and her shoulders back, ready to face down the woman who'd been slowly chipping away at her sense of worth for 3 years. She was 9 years old and braver than most adults I knew. "It's your choice," I told her for what felt like the 100th time in the past 24 hours, and I meant it completely. This was her battle to fight, her stand to make, her truth to tell. She nodded once, sharp and decisive, like a general accepting orders. "Okay. I want to do it." The drive to Gloria's house was different this time. Yesterday's heavy silence had been replaced by something else. Anticipation, maybe, or the kind of electric tension you get before a thunderstorm rolls in. Bella sat in the back seat with the box in her lap, staring out the window at the Christmas morning landscape like she was memorizing it. Natalie rode shotgun in a black dress that looked more appropriate for a funeral than a family brunch, which seemed fitting considering what we were probably about to bury. When we pulled into Gloria's circular driveway, because of course she had a circular driveway, this was Texas and she had a reputation to maintain, the house looked like something straight out of Southern Living magazine. Garlands draped perfectly along the porch railings, matching wreaths on every window, lights strung with mathematical precision around every tree and bush. It was holiday perfection, the kind of scene that looked amazing in photos but felt cold as ice when you actually had to live in it. Ready for this? I asked Bella as we walked up the front steps, past the life-sized nativity scene that Gloria had been bragging about on Facebook for weeks. Ready, she said simply, clutching the box a little tighter. Gloria answered the door in full hostess mode, wearing a Christmas sweater that probably cost more than most people's rent and a smile that could have powered the house lights. "Merry Christmas, darlings," she gushed, air-kissing Natalie and completely ignoring the tension that was thick enough to cut with a butter knife. "Don't you all look festive?" She barely glanced at Bella's dress, the one she'd spent an hour picking out and another hour making sure was absolutely perfect. "Festive as always," Gloria said dismissively, already turning her attention to Natalie's outfit and the bottle of wine we'd brought as a hostess gift. I watched Bella's face during this exchange, saw the tiny flicker of disappointment she tried to hide behind her brave mask. Even on Christmas morning, even when she was dressed like a little princess and carrying what amounted to a declaration of war, Gloria couldn't be bothered to really see her. That was okay. In about 3 hours, she wouldn't have a choice. After brunch, which was basically Gloria's greatest hits of passive-aggressive hosting, complete with comments about some people not eating enough of her famous pecan French toast, it was time for the main event. The living room transformed into Gloria's personal theater, with everyone arranged like an audience waiting for the show to begin. Maddox got the spotlight first, naturally. The kid tore through his smartwatch packaging like a miniature tornado, while Gloria practically glowed with pride. "Grandma saved up for months to get you the very best one, sweetheart," she cooed, like she was announcing his Nobel Prize acceptance. Then came Ivy's turn with that ridiculous jewelry box that probably cost more than my car payment. Gloria went into full narrator mode, explaining every tiny charm on the gold bracelet like she was giving a museum tour. "This little book represents what a wonderful reader you are, and this heart shows how much Grandma loves you." The whole performance made my stomach turn, but I kept my mouth shut. This was all build-up to the real show. Finally, after what felt like 3 hours of watching other kids get treated like royalty, Gloria remembered there was a third child in the room. She disappeared into the kitchen and came back with that pathetic gift bag, the one that screamed, afterthought, louder than a fire alarm. "Bella, sweetheart," she said with all the enthusiasm of someone reading a grocery list, "this is for you." I watched Bella pull out that $5 candle, watched her read the tag that might as well have been a slap in the face. "To Natalie's girl." Not our granddaughter. Not my precious Bella. Just Natalie's girl, like she was some kind of borrowed property. Bella looked at me across the room. Our eyes met, and I saw everything I needed to see in that look. She was done. Done with the crumbs. Done with the excuses. Done with pretending this was normal or acceptable. I gave her one small nod. She stood up from her spot on the couch, that red box clutched in her small hands like it contained the crown jewels. The room went quiet as she walked with perfect posture to the head of the table, where Gloria sat like a queen holding court. "Grandma," Bella said, her voice clear and steady as a bell. "Dad told me to give this to you if you ever ignored me again." She placed the red box directly in front of Gloria with the kind of precision that would make a chess master proud. No drama, no tears, no theatrics. Just a 9-year-old girl delivering truth like a perfectly wrapped present. The silence that followed was deafening. Even the grandfather clock seemed to hold its breath. Gloria looked at that red box like Bella had just handed her a live grenade with the pin pulled out. For a split second, and I mean just a split second, her perfect hostess mask slipped, and I saw something flicker across her face. Confusion? Recognition? Fear? Hard to tell with someone who'd been performing for so long. She'd probably forgotten what her real expressions looked like. But then that practiced smile snapped back into place like a rubber band, and she was back to playing the role of the gracious grandmother receiving an unexpected gift from her beloved grandchild. "Well, aren't you just the sweetest thing?" she said, her voice dripping with that fake honey sweetness that made my teeth ache. What could this possibly be? She picked up the box with the same enthusiasm most people reserve for handling roadkill, turning it over in her manicured hands like she was examining evidence at a crime scene. The whole room was watching now. Caroline had put down her coffee cup. Uncle Bob had stopped scrolling through his phone. Even Maddox and Ivy had paused their argument over who got the last cinnamon roll to see what was happening. "Should I open it now?" Gloria asked, still performing for her audience, still pretending this was just another heartwarming family moment instead of the reckoning it really was. "Yes," Bella said simply, and there was steel in that little voice that would have made a Marine proud. Gloria started peeling away the wrapping paper with the precision of a surgeon, because even opening a gift had to be a performance with her. She lifted the lid of the jewelry box slowly, like she was afraid something might jump out at her. The first thing she saw was the photograph, that beautiful 8x10 of Bella and me on adoption day, both of us grinning like idiots, the frame reading "Day 1 Dad," in silver letters that caught the morning light streaming through her pristine windows. I watched Gloria's face as she stared at that photo, watched the fake smile start to crack around the edges. She knew what she was looking at. She knew what it meant. But she was still hoping, I think, that this was all some kind of misunderstanding, some innocent gesture that she could dismiss with a wave of her perfectly manicured hand. Then she saw the folded papers underneath the photograph. The adoption certificate, with its official letterhead and raised seal and my name printed clear as day in legal black ink. Proof that this amazing little girl was mine in every way that mattered, that I'd chosen to be her father not because I had to, but because I wanted to more than I'd ever wanted anything in my life. Gloria unfolded the papers slowly, her eyes scanning the legal jargon like she was reading her own death sentence. Which, in a way, she was. The death of her ability to pretend that Bella wasn't really family, wasn't really her responsibility, wasn't really someone she needed to love and protect and claim as her own. Finally, she pulled out the letter. My letter. The one I'd written at 2 in the morning 3 months ago, when I was tired of watching my daughter get treated like a second-class citizen in her own family. 3 pages of everything I'd wanted to say for years but had been too polite, too hopeful, too damn naive to actually voice. The room was so quiet you could have heard a pin drop as Gloria read that letter. I watched her lips move slightly as she went through each line, saw her hands start to shake just a little as the words sank in. Caroline was craning her neck trying to see what was in the box. Uncle Bob had gone completely still, and the kids were staring like they were watching a tennis match. Then Gloria got to the end of the letter, and that's when all hell broke loose. The scream that came out of her mouth was something else entirely. High-pitched, sharp enough to shatter her precious crystal collection, and loaded with more outrage than a politician caught with their hand in the cookie jar. It wasn't the sound of someone who'd been caught off guard. It was the sound of someone who'd been caught red-handed and was pissed as hell about it. "How dare you?" she shrieked, waving the papers in the air like she was surrendering to an invisible army. "How dare you embarrass me like this in my own home, in front of my family?" She was standing now, her Christmas sweater askew, her perfect hair starting to come undone at the edges. The gracious hostess act had completely evaporated, replaced by something ugly and raw and real. This is inappropriate. This is manipulative. That's when I stood up, my chair scraping against her hardwood floors loud enough to cut through her tirade. "You did that all by yourself, Gloria," I said, my voice calm and steady in contrast to her hysteria. "Every single word in that letter, every photo in that box, every legal document. You made all of that necessary with your own behavior." The truth hit that room like a bomb going off, and suddenly everyone was looking at Gloria with new eyes, seeing past the performance to the ugly reality underneath. What happened next was like watching a house of cards collapse in slow motion. Gloria turned on Natalie with the fury of a woman who'd just realized her carefully constructed world was crumbling around her designer shoes. "This is all your fault," she screamed, pointing at my wife like she was identifying a criminal in a lineup. "You turned him against me. You let him poison that child's mind against her own grandmother." The irony was so thick you could have spread it on toast. Gloria accusing someone else of poisoning a child's mind when she'd been systematically destroying Bella's sense of belonging for 3 solid years. But that's the thing about people like Gloria. They never see themselves as the villain in anyone else's story. I stepped between them before this could get any uglier. "Nobody turned me against you, Gloria. And nobody had to poison Bella's mind. You did that all by yourself with your actions. She's not even your real daughter." Gloria shrieked, and there it was. The truth she'd been dancing around for years finally said out loud, ugly and naked and vicious as a snake bite. That's when I knew we were done. Completely, totally, irrevocably done. "Bella is my daughter," I said, my voice steady as granite. "She's our family. If you can't accept that, then we're finished here." I looked at Natalie, waiting for her to say something. Anything that would show Bella she had at least one adult in this room willing to fight for her. But my wife just stood there like a statue, her face pale, her mouth opening and closing like a fish gasping for air. Her silence said everything. I took Bella's hand, her small fingers immediately wrapping around mine with complete trust, and grabbed our coats from the hall closet. "We're leaving. You can't just walk out." Gloria called after us, but her voice sounded hollow now, desperate. "Watch me," I said, and we did exactly that. The car ride home was quiet, but it was a different kind of quiet than yesterday. This was peaceful quiet, the kind you get after a storm passes and the air finally clears. Bella sat in the back seat humming softly to herself, looking lighter somehow, like she'd just put down a weight she'd been carrying for too long. "Dad?" she said as we pulled into our driveway. "Yeah, kiddo. Thank you." "For what?" "For choosing me." And just like that, she reminded me why I'd fallen in love with this kid in the first place. Not because she was perfect, but because she was brave and wise and kind enough to thank someone for doing what any decent human being should do without thinking twice. We never went back to Gloria's house. There were no apologies, no attempts at reconciliation, no tearful phone calls begging us to reconsider. Just silence, which told us everything we needed to know about what we'd really meant to them. But you know what? We didn't need them. Bella and I had each other, and that was enough. More than enough. The red box sits in my desk drawer now, empty but not forgotten. Sometimes I catch Bella looking at the spot where it used to sit on her nightstand, and she'll smile. Not sad, not wistful, just satisfied. She delivered her message, made her stand, and reminded everyone in that room what family really means. Not blood, not obligation, not keeping the peace at any cost. Just love. Pure, simple, uncomplicated love. And sometimes, that's the only weapon you need.